Hola, bon dia here. Hola, bon dia here. Hola, bon dia. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream YouTube channel and podcast. Good morning to you if you're listening to the podcast a little later on or even watching the replay on YouTube. Great to have your company. Why don't you join us one day live at 9 o'clock if that's possible? I know that means staying up till possibly 2 in the morning in the United States, but why not give it a go sometime and join in with all the interactivity that is the Good Morning Portugal live stream here on our own Facebook page and, of course, on the Expats Portugal Facebook page as well, where we've been making some new friends over the last couple of weeks. It's great to have your company as well. So who are you, where are you, and how are you doing today? If I answer that question myself, as you may know, if you've tuned in regularly recently, I have been moving house, and I think I'm at that place now of peak exhaustion, peak fatigue. It's been quite a complicated move, not far geographically, but lengthy and really hot, of course, moving in the heat. Lots of friends coming to visit while we were doing that. And I think I really reached a state of near desperation last night as I found myself in Porto, not enjoying a glass of port, not enjoying the ancient streets of Porto and the Harry Potter inspiring ambiance. But no, I was in IKEA buying stuff for the new place. And I don't think I got home until after midnight last night. And it just prompted me to think, you have this dream of moving to Portugal and you have an idea of how it might be. And my idyll is, there I am. I'm in a semi-rural position. I'm drinking local wine, perhaps eating local food, maybe growing some of my own food as well. The children are playing in the garden, and all is well. Little bit of work, not working too hard, enjoying the sunshine. And it's like one of those memes, what I thought I'd be doing, what my friends think of. My friends think I probably play golf and drink gin and tonic all the time because I live in Portugal and wear sandals and socks in the Algarve. But no, the reality of it was I was at IKEA, and it's all very well for me to be moaning about being at IKEA at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Those poor souls who work in there. Do you know IKEA in Porto is open till 11 o'clock, I think, every evening, certainly weekday evenings. So shout out to those hard workers at IKEA, working in those strange pandemic influenced circumstances as well as they are. IKEA are all over it, as you'd imagine. They design our lives, don't they? In many ways, being in an IKEA is like being in Portugal's biggest Airbnb. All the furniture in there is so familiar now. It's like being in one massive Airbnb where you sit down and think, oh, this is nice. And then you realize you're in a shop and not relaxing somewhere nice and Portuguese for the evening. But anyway, enough of my woes, just to give you a bit of context there. But you may want to respond to that and say, yeah, I came to Portugal to have a restful and peaceful and easygoing life, and I'm working harder than I ever have. That might be the case for you. Certainly, I know Carl, who's here today, is working very hard at the moment. Bom dia, Carl, tudo bem? I'm with you on peak fatigue. Yeah, there you go. This is the latest I've been in bed in the morning for 2 months. So it's caught up with you, Carl. Be easy on yourself, friend. Take it easy. Look after yourself, look after your body. And you have to remember to sharpen your axe every now and then. I hope that doesn't sound too cryptic, but, if you just keep going, you'll blunt your axe. You've got to stop. You've got to sharpen. So take that from me, Dr. Munson, identifying as a doctor momentarily there. IKEA, the spiritual home of the Allen key. Absolutely, Wayne. And all those bits that get left over, which I think are called exiters, is a technical name for the little bits that get left over from IKEA constructions that then go in that drawer that you have with all the funny bits of your life, the debris of your life, and paraphernalia from probably not failed IKEA projects. Their stuff is really well designed and I think easy to put together, but you still have to do the job yourself, which is interesting, isn't it? They sell you the furniture and you have to put it together. It's quite a cheeky little marketing ploy, really, and they've managed to hoodwink a lot of us with that. Henry, good morning to you, by the way, Wayne, as well. How are you doing? Probably resting from your trip to Portugal as well. You see what I mean about the irony of a relaxing and easygoing life in Portugal? And that's at least 3 of us who are in recovery from the said life at the moment anyway. Don't want to increase your stress, but we're just about to book our flights to come back. No, Henry, no. This is friend Henry who was here. I wouldn't have missed hanging out with you and not unpacking our stuff for the world. So, yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again later in the month. They obviously like it, folks, and you're very helpful to Henry, Nina, and family. They had a few questions about living in Portugal. I think they're all answered well, and they had a fantastic tour around the place. And it looks like they'll be joining us. Claire and Steve, bon dia, Carl. IKEA causes the fatigue. It's like pulling teeth walking around there. Yeah, fair point, Claire and Steve, who I think are in Manchester now. I think the very first IKEA I went to was not far from you in Manchester a long time ago. And in those days, driving home with things strapped precariously to the roof as I fitted kitchens and stuff like that in my younger days. Yeah, so let's have a look at the weather now. But thank you for all your comments so far, pouring in, which is lovely. And as I say, peak fatigue for me here. And I think the only way is up, really, was we begin to really make sense of the new home that we're in. Pandemic positives as well. Let's come back to that. But Portugal's pandemic positive is that we're among the leaders in Europe now, in Portugal, in getting the numbers right down. Tell you more about that in detail in a moment. But I first want to go into the weather, which if I share my screen with you, you will see from the Portugal news, we have unseasonal weather for a week now. And there you go. Thank you, Portugal News, for this. PortugalNews.com, Portugal's national paper in English. Unseasonal weather until the 20th of August. You might imagine that will be really hot, but no. Au contraire, mes amigos. Maximum temperatures. I don't know if I mixed up French and Portuguese. I think I got away with that. Maximum temperatures in Portugal are expected to be below normal levels until the 20th of August, a week from now, with the Algarve expected to see the best of the weather. According to the Portuguese Institute of the Sea and the Atmosphere, IPMA, there is an institute that oversees Portuguese atmosphere, everybody. I like it. I like the atmosphere here. The cloud cover being experienced in Portugal is considered to be a normal feature of summer weather for the country. The cloud cover is expected to clear in the coming days, and we're not complaining, maximum temperatures are expected to be between 1 to 3 degrees centigrade below normal until at least the 20th of August. Despite this, we're talking about temperatures in the Alentejo that could reach 34 or 35. That's hot enough for anyone, isn't it? On the coast, it'll be feeling a little cooler in cities such as Porto, Viana do Castelo, and even Lisbon. Further south, Porto and Viana will. Oh, isn't that nice? It gets affectionately referred to as Viana. Will be around 22 degrees and 24 degrees centigrade in the next few days, but it's nothing extraordinary. And it is not abnormal. So in a world where lots of weather is being reported as apocalyptic, relax, guys, here in Portugal. Nothing too extraordinary, just a little unseasonal. And as I looked into the night sky last night, I have to say that I took my 8-year-old boy with me. Very Portuguese parenting, hanging out with the kids late into the evening. I love that about Portugal, that you're not ashamed to be out with your children after 9 o'clock in the evening, and people thinking, oh, that's bad parenting. It's really cool here. You can stay out late with your kids and no one bats an eyelid. And I did notice that, it's like families going out at about 9 or 10 to a gear last night. But we came back. He thought obviously he has fallen asleep in the back of the car, as kids do on the way home. And as we walk, he's too big to carry now. You know that lovely thing when you're a kid and you get carried by your parents from the back seat of the car? You actually pretend to be asleep, don't you? So you get carried to bed. And he's too big for that now. I was going to give it a go, but I managed to wake him up and encourage him to walk from the car to the house. And I said, look at that night sky. And as he looked up, as we both looked up to the night sky, I saw the fieriest, brightest and most elaborate shooting star I've ever seen. And we were both quite shocked by it. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Maybe it was that large passenger jet that flew over a Portuguese beach. Did you see that? They test flew a Portuguese jet over an Algarve beach recently. And the problem is everyone's seen a disaster movie or two and they thought the worst was happening. It's just a scheduled test flight that had been alerted on Twitter. But it did shock a few people, I have to say. Back to a few more comments before I do the actual weather. Wayne Barr thought the kids would do housework while we were in Portugal, but no, rolling the sleeves up to get some work done. So you've gone back to a mess, have you? Can't wait to get back to Portugal. A lot of people in that condition. at the moment. Back in Blighty, but wanting to be back here in Portugal. I'm with you on the knackered carousel fairground ride. I've just finished taking down a chimney in the annex and reconstructed the roof a bit, like you do, Gary. Looking forward to the wine club tonight. Yeah, good shout there, Gary. I will say more about the brew that we'll be looking at tonight. Will Thompson's here. Google the Scottish. Google does sound like a Scottish word. I'd never thought of that before. Google the Scottish Kelpie horse photo with lightning if you can. Big horsehead statues lit up from yesterday's night storm there. Incredible. So there is apocalyptic weather around, but not here in Portugal. I don't know. Whenever we go out, Rita usually carries me home. I can see that, Neil. She perfected her fireman's lift because of you and your bad behaviour. Thank you to Neil, and thank you to the next man in the queue here, Sean Maguire. Bon dia, mon dear. Sean, got your photos of your fabulous properties. Tell me more, Sean. I think you're in the marketplace with those, and very kind offer to drop in for a swim in the Calistella Branco. Your pool looks beautiful. And I do know people actually who have commented already who may be in a position to take a look at your property if it's on the market. So let me know what you're wanting and the condition, not the condition, the position you're in at the moment, you know, which ones you're selling of your vast property portfolio. So good morning to you, Sean. Yes, absolutely. We got it, Neil. Yeah, we didn't think you had two ladies, one called Rita and one called Carrie, who take you home of an evening. Lee said about that, the better, I suspect. So weather. Let me have a look at the principal parts of Portugal, and then we'll have a look at some other news that's caught my eye. Stuff about cigarette butts in Portugal, new laws. Do not be thinking about chucking your fag butt down on the ground. Fag butt will sound like an interesting phrase to American listeners, but I think we've talked about that enough in popular media to really understand that now. But if there is any confusion, PM me. Lisbon, 18 degrees at the moment and sunny. We just talked about cloud, and there doesn't seem to be any except in Coimbra today. Funny that the weather predictions turn out not to be true. I give you this in good faith. 18 degrees at the moment and clear in Lisbon, rising to 27. Looking like a nice weekend on its way. Porto, as I stare into the digital seaweed, 16 degrees in Porto, rising to 23 today. Sunny until the weekend, through the weekend. Coimbra, a little bit of cloud. Forecast today, a bit of that cloud cover that we mentioned. 16 degrees, however, at the moment, rising to 27. Another hot one today. And Faro, 21 degrees at the moment and clear, rising to 28 today. So there you go. That's enough about weather for the time being. Yeah, Neil, fag butt. Say it again if it amuses you. We know we have a few people here who aren't quite as chatty as some of the rest of us. So if you're a little shy, you can see these people are lovely. Do say hello. If you've not said hello before, let us know who you are and where you are. And we would love to say hola bon dia to you this morning. So your pandemic positives, okay? I mean, I have a tendency, as you might have noticed, if you're a regular, to be a little bit, what's the best word to describe this? But a bit whingy sometimes about some of the measures that have been taken, mask wearing and so on. And, I've got myself into some hot water and exchanges with people, all in good faith and all in good heart and in the spirit of having respectful conversations, as we nearly did last night at 10, but I was still at IKEA. But yeah, that said, and obviously the devastating effect that the pandemic has had on all of our lives, all around the world, it would seem. And, I keep saying that there's this economic elephant in the room. And do we choose to be meerkats about this, or do we choose to be ostriches? I see a lot of ostrichy behavior about this. And I understand that, people don't really want to be thinking about how grim it's going to be, do they? Why would you, as a human being? We are eternally hopeful often. So yeah, that said, I think our lives will change beyond measure and recognition, possibly in these coming weeks, months, and years. But at the same time, there have been positives, haven't there? So do you have any positives to share about how the pandemic has affected your life, notwithstanding all the challenges it may have brought you? with your daily life and relating to your family abroad or whatever. But are there some positive things to have come out of this? That just flashed before me on social media. What are your pandemic positives? Oh, that's quite a nice angle. Maybe we should do that on the show today. So anything that's changed for you that you didn't see coming, but you actually quite like now. Certainly, it would seem with this thing of retiring or moving to Portugal for an easy life, and then the pandemic hits and you find yourself taking down chimneys. Interestingly, as Gary's doing, I don't know if that's a positive or not, but your comments on that would be most welcome too. What was your dream life here, and what's your reality life here? That contrast, I think, is quite interesting. And a little bit of a sort of caveat as well to those thinking of coming here as well, to give them a realistic view. Talking about moving here and being an expat and an immigrant in Portugal, I've got a lovely new feature for you, a 2-week feature starting next Monday and the Monday thereafter. A new feature called Ask Diogo. This is so good. This takes us beyond our echo chamber that we might have here as expats and immigrants in the Good Morning Portugal live stream. We kind of talk to ourselves, so a bit insular possibly. So what I've done here is let me share this with you now. Here's my friend Diogo Bandeira, who I did call him the expat whisperer at first, and then realized that's Deborah Dahab, who I spoke to a long time ago here on the live stream. So I've called him the expats expert, and he's a proper Portuguese guy. By that, I mean he's Portuguese. He's worked. He's lived abroad himself. He works with a lot of expats, helping them develop their businesses here, and immigrants coming into Portugal. And he's just a good egg all round, really. And he will do his best to help you as somebody who is truly Portuguese from that Portuguese perspective, answer any questions. He'll do his best to confuse you. No, that's what he said, jokingly. But I think we'll have a great time talking to Diogo on Monday. So that's Ask Diogo. You could do that on the page, actually, with the post that I put up recently. You can ask him questions there if you can't make it on Monday and you want that sort of inside view. From Portuguese Diogo, please just ask on the Facebook page on the post that I put up there yesterday, I believe, alongside Gordianus's comments about the B-Day, who wishes us all to have nice, what was the word he used? Fresh bottoms or something like that. And he suggested that not having a B-Day in a Portuguese toilet is like going to an ancient Roman party without a toga on. So B-Day Gate continues. I don't expect to see the back of that anytime soon, or for it to be flushed away for now. Here we go. Simon Matthias, a new name to the screen here. Hi, I hope to be flying out to Faro on the 28th of September, all being well. Really need this holiday. We're feeling your need there, Simon, and thank you for saying hello this morning. Yeah, fingers crossed for you. The collective fingers for you are now crossed, so that you can be enjoying Faro on the 28th of September, where I suspect the weather will still be very good. The Portuguese summer, as I understand it, goes on till November. That has been my experience in these 3 years that I've been here. So good morning to you. Lovely to see you. Simon, Joanna Thomas. Hi, Joanna. Bom dia, borda. Last time I should have picked up that obviously Joanna Thomas is from Wales, Welsh Wales, and says Bon dia, borda, from a still hot, despite the storms, Wales. Can't be a good wanderer like here. I think some people would disagree with you. Some people would love to beat a good wanderer around IKEA. But I understand that. I've mixed feelings. I do enjoy it in some ways. Excuse me, I just have a sip of water. Bear with me. Yeah, the exhaustion is beginning to show in my voice. I got the estate agent coming today to value our home. Portugal is getting closer. Again, fingers crossed for you. I think we need to perhaps do collective spells, don't we, or something, and well-wishing on behalf of and to support all those people who are wanting to make their home here in Portugal. What I love, actually, some of the feedback I get is that what we're doing here of a morning actually helps people keep their Portuguese dream alive. That was something that somebody said to me, and I was really chuffed to hear that. So at your service with that, and I'm sure all of the people here who already have made the move and love it, will have good feelings and positive feelings and affirmations for you. So good luck with that today, Joanna, with the estate agent coming around. I hope they give you the valuation you want that makes it possible for you to come to Portugal, and Borada to you as well. It's interesting. I wonder if there are many connections between the Portuguese and Welsh languages. Obviously, there's a massive Celtic influence in both. So maybe you'll know more about that than I do. Positives, pandemic positives. I like to be left alone. I'm already socially distant, says Jay, who's actually a DJ. I mean, I suppose that's not the irony isn't completely wasted there, that DJs like to be the one alone in the DJ booth, don't they? Inflicting their music on everybody else. So I do get that thing about DJs, although they're in social situations, they're actually often quite introverted in a strange sort of way. And they do their show, but they keep their distance. As you're saying there, Jay, and the world slowing down. Enjoyed that pandemic positive. Time to reflect and reevaluate what is important and stuff like that. Getting to eat out a bit more, though, with the idea of a staycation. Lots of restaurants and pubs taking part in the British government scheme where it's half price Monday to Wednesday, yeah, stimulating the economy. I did hear that yesterday, actually. Your Chancellor, I call him your Chancellor, not my Chancellor anymore, Richie Sunak, is he called? And saying that the reason why there was this massive recession, thanks, Jay, for that, by the way, the massive recession in the UK is because, unlike other European countries, the UK is massively reliant on service industry spending, which completely shut down. What a far cry from Britain's industrial past, that now the economy is so premised on eating out, for example, and spending, consumer spending. And I thought, well, how come Portugal isn't similarly hit? Because, so much of Portuguese life is about eating out and cafe life and so on, and tourism, which shut down. So there must be some backbone, or it'll come out later in the wash, but there must be some industrial backbone here in Portugal, or it's that 20 billion quid's worth, euros worth of gold in the vaults, maybe. I don't know. What's Portugal's secret? Greater minds than mine will know the answer to that. Read the cigarette butt laws. What do you do when you see a GNR officer throwing his in the gutter at a local cafe, as I did a few weeks ago? Citizens arrest, obviously, Pete. No, actually, don't do that. Don't do that. But we should say, shouldn't we, Pete? There are certain privileges that tourists can ask of a GNR officer. Is it true, for example, that you can go into any GNR police station as a tourist, demand lunch, and you will be served a 3-course lunch at the expense of the Portuguese government? Are there other things that we can encourage tourists to demand and enjoy at their local GNR station? Stay tuned to find out if that's true or not. Thank you, Pete. In emergency situations, many people need clear instructions, good direction, solid leadership, none of which have been evident from the organizations who are supposed to lead in these situations. I think most of us can agree on that. Yes, we have come to an agreement on that, haven't we, Gary? Learn a bit more self-reliance can't be a bad thing. Yeah, that's what I've been banging on about, isn't it? Self-reliance, local living, connecting with your locality and your community, social capital. That's the capitalism of the future, I think. Social capital. Good point, Gary. Thank you for that. Our plan was to drive through Portugal along the Algarve and then up the west coast in our motorhome, our moho. Hashtag moho, because you don't want to be FOMO. I'll stop that now. I'll stop me Instagramming of the vocabulary of the show and act my age, expecting to spend maximum 2 months. Only ever spending 2 weeks on holiday in the Algarve previously. Well, 5.5 months later, we can really say we have fallen in love with Portugal in these strange times. So a Portuguese pandemic positive for you is that you managed to get kind of locked down and go off the radar here. Fantastic. The coastal towns have been wonderful, and we can't recommend them highly enough. Can't wait to get back. So many people wanting to be back here. It's superb. And thank you for sharing, everybody, this morning. Bet the eucalyptus toilet paper industry is quietly raking it in. Is that the backbone then of the Portuguese economy? Possibly will. The controversial blooming eucalyptus, turns out it's kept Portugal going. What with the run on toilet paper? That's not quite the toilet paper sales were on a roll. I can think of others which I dare not share right now, but you get the idea. Yeah, that's well observed, Will, as we're so used to from you. He exhausted me yesterday. I put a simple comment up on Facebook. Will's in there. Let's have a lie down after my interaction with him. He'll be back on Tuesday, next Tuesday in the evening slot. Good evening, Portugal, as we look into the pandemic politics a bit more and discuss how we've all changed, I think, during this, how our ideas have changed, how we've been challenged, how we've been opened up, whatever it is that's come, what we've realized about ourselves, our worst fears, some of our greatest hopes, maybe coming to light, as Gary is pointing out, that we are connecting more on a community basis rather than relying too much on central and global government. Interesting stuff. So any more pandemic positives? Have a think about that while I share the cigarette butt law that Pete was talking about. Again, back to the Portugal news. New law sees fines for cigarette butt throwers. It's such an interesting... It makes it look like an Olympic sport, doesn't it? And now, going for gold in the cigarette butt throwing is the GNR officer that Pete saw the other day. A new law passed last year entailing fines for anyone caught throwing cigarette butts onto the floor will come into next month. Transgressors could be slapped with fines ranging from... See, this is one of those lovely words that you only really see in newspaper reporting. Slapped with a fine, a bit like a bungled raid. Slapped with a fine ranging from 25 euros to 250 euros. Wow. That's almost the cost of a packet of cigarettes, isn't it? 250 euros. The law was passed on the 3rd of September last year and also applies to establishments that fail to provide patrons with ashtrays. It will be implemented from the 3rd of September. So if you've got any cigarette butt throwing to do, get it in before the 3rd of September. And I love the comments. It's worth checking out the Portugal news often for just the comments. Tony Fernandez says, and I share this because it's in the public domain, hopefully and unfortunately, money will talk where the education miserably fails. It's often the way, Tony. And Steve Andrews. Now, I am pleased to hear this because I see cigarette butts discarded all over the place, sometimes loads of them at bus stops and on train lines. Well, if you've waited for buses here, you'll understand why sometimes people do lose the will to live. And having stood there for 3 hours and smoked an entire packet of cigarettes, just a little comment there on some of the public transport, which actually I have to say generally is really good. I love using public transport in Portugal. But like all, neoliberal economies, the money isn't there necessarily for providing the best of services. But that's no excuse for people fag butt throwing at bus stops. They are a major source of plastic pollution of the environment, a source of toxins, and a wildfire risk when thrown in the countryside. Stand by, Will, because I've got a bit of mischief to bring all of these news items together, okay? As I will endeavour to do now after I've shared this comment from Pete. Pandemic positive number 1. No Pimba music blasting through the village speakers all day due to no festas. So, Pete, Pimba music, that's the very traditional accordion sort of stuff that can drive you nuts into the early hours of the morning if you're not used to it. I mean, I'm not meaning to be rude with a cultural faux pas there, but I think I have in mind, we'll have to do a little feature on Pimba music and find out more about it. I always thought, when I was first reading that and thinking about the music that tends to blare out in Portugal is the dembo rhythm, the ding, 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 and it goes on and on. I quite like it, actually. It gives me a chance to shake my boom boom Brazil, and which I enjoy, but will not ever inflict upon you. But yeah, that's a rhythm that I've become accustomed to. Tell us more about Pimba music, or we will do our own investigation into that. In Plymouth, says Joanna Thomas, there have been fines for butt dropping. That's an interesting turn of phrase as well. There have been fines for butt dropping in Plymouth for about 5 years. £100 ago, 100 of your British pounds over there for a butt dropping. Valerie Spencer Becks, no bangy things going off night and day, scaring the dogs half to death. Good morning, Valerie. Hello, how are you? Thank you for your correspondence recently. I rely on you to make me a little bit more sensible in life. Thank you for what you've been sharing with me. No banging things going on. So the fireworks, yeah. another pandemic positive there, not scaring the animals with the fireworks. So yeah, a good one. Let me then share a little bit more about the yes, Portugal among EU countries with the biggest drop in new COVID-19 cases, and then by some arc of incredible production, because you know a hell of a lot of production goes into this show. I will attempt to draw it all together. Portugal among EU countries with the biggest drop in COVID-19 cases. Here we go. On the 2nd of August, Portugal tallied 28.4 active cases per 100,000 inhabitants, accumulated over 14 days, placing it 7th on the list based in that particular indicator. This is according to the most recent report from the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. Don't know who you're getting your data from, do you? And should I into some of these comments here? Look, you see what I mean about Portugal news comments. They're often very good as the articles sometimes. So that's really good news, obviously. Not for those people who are the active cases, of course, who we should always bear in mind. But in terms of the big numbers, as Donald would say, a good picture. And of course, what that highlights is how unfairly Portugal has been treated by the UK, for example, leaving not the Lisbon Treaty, that's something entirely different, the Treaty of Windsor in tatters. And so from Anthony Brown, and Boris will ignore all the evidence and only establish the air bridge once it's too late for people to come to Portugal for their summer holidays. End of August seems likely. If, should I say his name? I mean, you know, his name curdles blood and turns milk sour. If Dominic Cummings suddenly decided to take a late break in the Algarve, the ban would be lifted immediately. Funny, because we know that's probably true, or just ignored. He's an exception to every rule, says Anthony Brown from the Algarve. So there you go. Good news, like a pandemic positive, literally there, that the cases in Portugal down to 28.4 active cases per 100,000 inhabitants. And this might seem a little mischievous, not like me, I know. Hold on a minute. We're going to find out about Pimba. Come back to that. Pimba is an upbeat style of music that's a sort of mix of pop and folk. Yes, I hear it in my mind's ear as you describe it there. It tends to get played a lot at summer festivals, but mainly in parts of rural Portugal rather than in the cities like Lisbon and Porto, where many people are embarrassed by it. Yeah, those city slickers, they don't like their country roots, do they? But I hear it. I hear it in my head. And it is very earwormy, isn't it, Pimba, if we're on the same wavelength there, Pete? And it is a very traditional sound. And even before the festa has started, it is blaring through the speakers that are up on the telegraph poles, isn't it? Like all day long. So I can understand why you might get a little bit oversaturated. You might also moan, Sue Shaw. You might also moan about the 7 dogs that howl outside my window for at least 2 hours during the night. Yes, we very rarely talk about barking dogs, but there you've done it there, so you've covered it. You might also, but we're not going to. But we know what you're talking about. We absolutely know what you're talking about. So famous Pimba artists are Queen, Barreiros, Agata, Toy, and many others with one name. Warning, listen at your own risk. So you've been told, people, by Pete there, quite a lot about Pimba this morning, the unofficial ambassador of Castelo de Pera and his guide to Pimba music this morning. Okay, perspective now, pandemic perspective. I was thinking, okay, we've talked about cigarette butts. So, I was thinking ahead of the show, we were going to talk about cigarettes and smoking. And we're looking at COVID-19, the pandemic, and the extraordinary impact it's had on our life. Check this out for a moment. I'm going to share with you some statistics now about tobacco. We talked about cigarette butts, which is obviously, the collateral damage of, one part of the damage of cigarette smoking, or the debris of it. Tobacco kills up to half of its users. And here the numbers, right? This is to make a comparison with COVID. And why wouldn't we take more serious action? And we know the answer to this, don't we? It's a bit of a tired old cliche, but you would think, wouldn't you, given the trouble we've gone to with the pandemic, to organize and curtail people's movements and behavior, you might implement something similar with tobacco, because apparently, and I'm looking at the World Health Organization here, the discredited World Health Organization in some people's minds anyway, tobacco kills more than 8 million people each year. More than 7 million of those deaths are the result of direct tobacco use, while around 1.2 million are the result of non-smokers being exposed to secondhand smoke. Those are the people who should get to wear masks, right? Over 80% of the world's 1.3 billion tobacco users live in low and middle income countries. They are assuaging their pain, it would appear. We understand how smoking works. As an ex-smoker, I don't mean to pontificate and moralize about this. I'm just laying out a few facts there and making what I think is an interesting comparison between something that kills 8 million people every year and why we might take a view more in line with the sort of stuff we've done with COVID, rather than the usual thing of no one's going to do anything about it because loads of tax revenue comes from it. Okay, enough said about that, possibly. But Pete also adding here about Pimba. If you want to listen to real, not Pimba, authentic Portuguese music, I highly recommend the initiative A Música Portuguesa a Gosta de la Propria. Have a look. I think you'll love it. I think I will, Pete. And I've also discussed previously the idea. We'll finish soon, everybody. Thank you for your excellent attention and contributions this morning. And I will tell you about the wine before I go. We told you about Ask Diogo, didn't we? But, we could do a radio show. We could do a radio show, not a live stream. If we start playing music on here, we get taken down because of the copyright issues. But I could use more of a radio format and do a Portuguese music show. Let me know what you think of that and whether you maybe even want to co-host it or something like that. But thanks, Pete, for that tip. Gary says, I miss the festas. It's part of the fabric of life in this country. Absolutely. That's a pandemic negative, if ever there was one, how the whole music vibe just disappeared, wiped off the face of the culture. It must be really difficult for the Portuguese because they have to act in ways which are totally alien to their culture. Often the festa is the highlight of a community's social calendar. Yeah, and we'll only really know the impact, like with so many things with the pandemic, in the months and years to come, won't we? How that's affected the livelihood of musicians and performers, how that has affected the social fabric, because, being in central Portugal and going to local festas, little ones, a few people, massive ones with the huge dining areas, and the scouts come out and feed everybody. It is amazing, absolutely amazing, and sorely missed this year. And fingers crossed that we recover from that in a very positive and useful way, and then it doesn't have too much of a negative effect. Good point, Gary. I thought your fact was going to be about how many millions of people have actually quit smoking. I hear it's huge. Yeah, and I'm pleased to hear that, Will. But no, I was being other than that in my analysis and suggestion there, with how smoking continues to kill 8 million people a year, and it hasn't really had the focus that COVID has had. And there'll be reasons for that. I understand that. I'm not trying to. I don't want to polarize opinion. I just wanted to put that into the debate. It's something we might pick up on Good Evening Portugal. Talking of which, an early one tonight. The hiccuping headmistress made the request that we start at 9, not 10. It was really late. Doing wine tasting at 10. Although culturally appropriate, typically Portuguese to be drinking, starting drinking and starting enjoying the evening at 10. Those poor people who worked at IKEA, who I was with last night, they must have dinner at 11:30 or something, and then maybe they go out. I don't know. Another aspect, an interesting aspect of Portuguese life, what their lifestyle must be like. So before I talk finally about the wine that we're tasting at 9 o'clock tonight, Pete's just saying he'll have a word with his friend who's a Portuguese musician, instrument maker, singer and songwriter who speaks English, and see if he'll come on the show with you. I would love that, Pete. I really would. So appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of other people would look forward to that happening as well. So please, do your best for us with that. So very finally, that's a Trumpism, isn't it? Very finally, tremendously finally. I'm the best at being finally. Let's have a look at the product details tonight, whilst I see if I get away with that Donny impersonation there. It is an Albanage Escadaria Maior Premium. It's a DOC, of course. A Douro Red tonight. I associate the Douro with white wine generally, in my experience. That's just me personally. I'm sure that's a faux pas. But look, we were looking at a bottle of wine here that's been reduced from 17.32 a litre, bottled at 12.99 originally, and it is available in Continent if you want to grab a bottle today and join us tonight for the tasting at €4.49, which is $5.99 per litre. It works out at. What I suppose that's a legislative thing that they have to do that, the price per litre. But that's what we're sipping tonight, with an intense garnet colour. I'm just whetting your appetite now. Floral aroma with notes of ripe cherries. I'm giving the game away. We'll see if we agree. Spicy aromas and slight notes of dried fruits. You don't want something tasting of dried apricots, do you? Complex and elegant wine with round tannins and a wide and persistent finish. I will make my own wide and persistent finish now and wish you an excellent day. See you tonight, perhaps, at the wine tasting starting at 9, and then after a little bit of chat for the Good Evening Portugal show, as we after we've enjoyed a couple of glasses, not a couple of bottles, a couple of glasses. And yes, if you'd like to support the show, this is a crowdfunded project. This is for me the new way of doing a business. And I'll ask Diogo on Monday what he thinks about crowdfunding actually and how popular it is in Portugal. But if you want to support the show, please go to ko-fi, all the W's.ko-fi/Carl Munson, and you can support the show there. Gary's excellent idea, along with saying to people now, come on, people, grab a bottle and join us tonight. He also suggested, I think it was you, Gary, wasn't it, who said €1 a week is a small price to pay for this service. Thank you for saying that, Gary. I would agree, obviously. And, as somebody who coughs up and supports the show, you are forever in my high esteem, and you'll get special privileges. Like, I'm thinking we should do a group off Facebook as well. That is a bit more private and secure, and where we can share information and network. Thinking of using this. In fact, I've already started a group on the Signal platform. So if you've supported the show previously and you'd like to be in that special group, just send me a PM. I need your mobile number, and we'll add you to that group. No chance of being censored in that environment. Finally, then, to Joanna Thomas in Plymouth. So I need to say hi to, before I forget, Paul Williams. Had a bit of an episode yesterday. I hope you don't mind me describing it as that, Paul, but you had excellent service from the NHS in the UK, and you were treated beautifully, and you are on the mend already. So best wishes to you, Paul, for a speedy recovery, and I'm glad you were treated so well. Back to Joanna. Husband heard Duero and stopped what he was doing, then heard the price and is Duro, and is now crying. I think he'll be listening. What? Because we're drinking a $4.49 Duro tonight. We are lucky, aren't we? Something to look forward to. Joanna and husband, if you ever want me to buy you a bottle and lay it by until you get here, you let me know. $4.49 Duro Red tonight. We'll be trying that at 9 o'clock. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for joining me this morning. Really appreciate it. Lots of love to you. Abrazos, beijinhos. Até próxima. Até já. Até logo. Ciao for now.